cause for helping support you.
All right. Well, Joel, as you mentioned, yeah, thanks to Perry Hirth. I want to let everybody online know, whether you're in our market center or you're in the region, welcome. Each month, Perry Hirth has set up a mega agent interview for our market center, and we connected with Joel last month, and we just had great feedback, great reviews from our associates. And as he mentioned, and as I mentioned to all of you, as you join in, mute yourself immediately as you come on. And Rosie,
I'll get her, Mom.
We'll do that as well, Rosie, if we can actually mute participants as they jump on. And then when you start interacting with Joel, then you'll unmute yourself.
Congress will keep investigating.
Let's see. We're just, I appreciate Rosie, and we're going to kind of keep working with this, Joel. But the whole thing that I want to share with you is, as Joel just mentioned, very interactive, very engaging. We're going to have over probably 150 people online today as people are still joining and jumping on. Yet he's going to go through some information that's very timely in our market, very timely for many of us to either hear or implement and strategize in your own business. So with that said, I really want this to be about our guest and his experience and how he can really help us move our business forward. So Joel, honestly, welcome back again for the second month.
Yes,
and you're here with our region as well. So it's not just our market center, but it's our region. And thanks for being here, buddy.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. And for those of you who are just joining in and tuning in, we have about a third of everybody has their video on. And I don't care if you haven't done your makeup yet today, or you have messy background. I have 2 children, or you're eating or driving, as long as you're not looking at us and keep your eyes on the road. The more videos, the better, because I love to respond to face interactions. And if somebody looks confused or excited, this is a conversation and a collaboration, and to hope increase your income by 10% even, maybe. So first, just to get a little poll of the room, if you have been in a multiple offer situation in the last 6 months, put a 1 in the chat box. And if you have not, put a 2. So 1 if you have, and 2 if you have not. So 1s, we got some 2s as well. So lucky for you guys, those who haven't been in there, a ton of 1s. And then if you have ever lost a multiple offer situation, give me an exclamation mark. Let's get some of that vent, let's vent a little bit. Exclamation mark if you've lost one. So we have a couple multiples. So Cody, we're definitely going to make sure that we help win you one. So if we can turn some of those exclamation marks into dollar signs, can we all agree that this today was worthwhile? Give me, I'm going to see Steve's sign here. A big yes. That's exactly right. So today, none of this is rocket science. None of this on its own will be the silver bullet. What I'm hoping to do is give you seven different strategies that when used, ideally all 7 at a time, but either in conjunction or in some form, will help you win at least one more multiple offer situation. So number 1, and first of all, I'm my team's lead listings specialist. I specialize in listings. Well, Joel, why are you giving us a class on helping win offers from a buyer's agent's perspective if you're a listing agent? Well, guess what? You're trying to impress me as the listing agent if I'm the agent who's getting 20 offers on a listing at a time. How do you get my attention, right? And I've been doing this since 2006. Let's just say that real estate was not as easy to sell for some of those years. And for a while, I was only working with buyers as well. So strategy number 1, if you only can do one, this is the one to do, but this will help make the rest easier or unnecessary, not unnecessary, but easier, is what I call a prospecting for information call. So give me a 1 if yes every time, and 2 if no. If every single time you're gonna make an offer, you've called that listing agent. Give me a 1 if a yes and 2 if a no. Okay, so Cody's making that call. We have a lot of people making that phone call. Leslie, no. And it's okay, we're being honest here, right? So I have had listings where I've had 20 plus offers, and only one agent called me. Only one agent called me at sometime between the showing and making an offer. Now, I'm not saying that just because somebody calls me, they're going to win, but what that prospecting for information call is going to do 3 things: building rapport with that agent, it will help get information from about that seller. If you can get that information to be shared, closing dates and information of why they're selling, things of that sort. And then 3, most importantly, is you're looking for leverage. You're looking for hot buttons that you may not have, that of those other agents who are presenting offers don't have. So this is really asking as many questions as possible, looking for leverage, looking for information that you're not supposed to know. And especially if you're in a multiple offer situation, you need every bit of information and leverage that you can help. The key of this whole presentation is to give you an unfair competitive advantage. Can we all agree that we want an unfair competitive advantage, right? So who wants to be in the hot seat for a moment and pretend to be the listing agent and I'm going to be the buyer's agent? And if somebody doesn't volunteer, I'm going to call on somebody to be in the hot seat. So who wants to be in the hot seat today? I promise to not bite. We won't use an actual listing because we want to make sure that we're recognizing confidential information here. But anyone want to volunteer? Unmute yourself and say yes and hello. Okay, Steve, he's going for a participation award part 2 for this time around. So Steve, once again, don't share any confidential information about a specific seller or property, but maybe have something in mind that either you are in, a listing that maybe has been competitive of some sort. So I'm gonna give ring, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Oh, hi. Is this Joel?
Yes, this is Joel Holland with Keller Williams One Chicago. Showed your property at 123 Main Street earlier today. I was just following up. Is the property still available?
It is, Joel. Yeah.
Great, Steve. Can you just tell me a little bit how's the activity been so far?
Well, it's kind of hopping. They got a few offers that were sent in.
Okay, so you've already gotten a few offers.
Right.
Okay. And you might be asking how are you handling a multiple offer situation?
Well, at this point, we're just collecting them and looking at them, trying to figure out where we want to go.
Okay, where do you want to go?
Yeah, trying to figure out which direction, which ones are good offers, which ones are not, and that's kind of what we're doing.
All right, so Steve, it sounds like you know the difference between a good offer and a bad offer. In your mind and in the seller's mind, what would make a good offer for you guys?
The seller, what they're looking for, I can't really give you a lot of information what they're looking for per se. Just make it the best offer that your buyer can make.
And so we'll pause here for just a moment. And so a couple little strategies that for some of you have noticed. So one is I would highly recommend outside of this class, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, wrote a book, and he's actually done a class on masterclass.com. You can sign up and there's a ton of different videos that you can watch. And Chris Voss has done a video on negotiations. And so what I did there was something called mirroring, where I was repeating the last 3 words that Steve had said, said a good offer. Oh, a good offer. And I did something also called labeling, saying, oh, it sounds like you're looking to do X, right? So I'm labeling what Steve is trying to do. I'm acknowledging, I'm repeating. And so this actually does 2 things. One is this will actually psychologically and neurologically, according to language of sales, will actually help Steve and I actually get on the same page and feel an actual emotional and biological connection. So that helps in us building rapport. We already talked, that's number 1. Number 2 is a good offer. What does this mean? How are you going to handle this? This gives me information on what is the battlefield that I am dealing with. If I can understand the terrain better than somebody else, I can navigate it better. And then when I did my timeout, where I would really be going with this is it's amazing how much information I get from sellers that I'm not supposed to know. Now, Steve did catch himself well, and he's like, oh, I'm not supposed to say. So feel free, as a listing agent, my favorite phrase, if I called up any of my team members or even my wife, and I said, hey, what is my favorite phrase to say? It is, I have not been given liberty to discuss. So if Perry calls me and says, hey, do you have any offers on that property? Well, if the answer is no, a ton of agents, if they say no, you're doing your client a total disservice because, well, now I'm going to approach this differently. And if I haven't gotten written direction from the seller, at least in Illinois, in the Chicago market, we are required to have written direction from a seller if we can or cannot share if we have an offer. So whether you do or don't, I would say, I have not been given liberty to discuss if we do or do not have any offers. The property is still available, and we would encourage to hear from you. You know, we encourage an offer, and we'd love to hear from you. So I'm not giving them any information. I'm still making them feel excited that they're following up and doing the right thing, and I'm encouraging an offer. Because if I say yes, it may deter somebody, and if I say no, then it may change their strategy. I'm going to be asking things like, Steve, why are these sellers selling? What's an important deadline? Anything aside from price that we should need to know? How did you get your price? Where are the comps? Where are the offers coming in at? Are they cash? Are they financed? Like all these things. I'm going to send you guys at the very end. If anyone's interested, send me an email. I'll send you my email at the very end, and you're going to send me an email with something about yourself, as I've done in the past. And I'm going to give you my talking notes for this presentation. I decided to just have this be conversational, and I'll send you the notes afterwards. So I will send those to you afterwards. And yes, and Perry's reading Never Split the Difference. So, so you know how to use late night DJ voice with your children. and if anyone has children, the late night DJ voice is a great way to calm your children off of a mental breakdown. And sometimes also dealing with clients. It's not that clients are children, not to belittle anybody. It's that we are all children. We just forgot how, we forgot that we were. And sometimes it's important to actually acknowledge and repeat and address how somebody's feeling. So, but number one is prospecting for information, just digging deep. And for every one question that somebody else is going to ask, I'm going to ask 6. Right? Hey, we hope it's a strong price. Oh, a strong price? What does a strong price mean? Is there a price range that you're looking for? What's the lock it up now price? Oh, you're asking for highest and best by tomorrow at 5 o'clock. What's the price I can offer today, right now, that you'll accept this offer and not accept any other offers? I can't tell you how many times I've had a seller give me a deadline and then somebody gave us a lock it up now price. And then I got a lot of angry phone calls afterwards. And I'm like, somebody gave us the lock it up price because they asked. Right? And the last thing is number 4 of the reason to do this is because if I have an agent who reaches out, it shows me that they're professional, that they are willing to do what they need to do to get a job done. And they will likely have maybe higher skills to also control their clients. So guess what? It's a rat race in terms of who's going to be the best. It's not just the best buyers or the best terms, it's the best agent too, which we're going to get into later in the presentation. So any questions on number 1, prospecting for information?
So I get the impression that you might talk to a person, they might clam up, this seller's agent, and yet you're able to get them to open up by hitting them up with a slightly different question. Is that true?
Yeah, so Steve, you're exactly right. I'm doing 2 things. I'm using mirroring and labeling to get them to open up. Which is really why I can't stress the Never Split the Difference and the Chris Voss Masterclass. And then it's asking the same question in different ways. And so let's say if you give the phrase that I like to give, if I'm not at liberty to discuss, Steve, sounds like you're clearly a good agent who knows how to handle himself and how to protect a client. It also shows that you know how to get the clients the best terms and the best price. Can we agree that if I can give you the best terms and the best price, you're doing a good job for your client?
That would be true, yeah.
Okay, great. So what do I need to do to win, right? Now, all of a sudden, we have aligned our incentives together. We're on the same team. And so Steve actually did a great job during our little role play. He said the sellers. He didn't say my sellers. So I want to also stress, it's not my buyers and your sellers, because then it's 2 versus 2. Then it's very combative, right? It is the buyers and the sellers. It's these buyers over here and it's these sellers over here. And Steve, this is you and me together. We're on the same team. You have a property that you want to sell and I have a buyer who wants to buy it. Like, let's work together. Let's make you look like a rock star. Let's get the sellers happy terms. Let's make it, Keller Williams always says win-win, right? Steve, this is about you and me and the buyers and the sellers, right? Let's get on the same page together.
That's kind of cool, yeah.
Yes. So, and Mike said a great tip that we're going to talk about later on as well, of having the lender, because it's not just about the buyer, it's about a fully comprehensive package that you're offering. So other things, just like the reading between the lines of, you know, asking more about other terms, like, oh, are they financed? You know, what kind of down payment? Are they cash? Are they not? And you're also looking for nuances. I love to make this a phone call, not a text message, not an email, because you really have to hear the nuances of the voice and really just get in a flow with them. It's amazing, once again, how much information that I can get in order to actually, you know, have this conversation. And there was a point where I had some team members listening in. We're in a multiple offer situation, and I literally asked 6 times, you know, what's the price that the sellers would take? And on the 6th time, they just flat out told me the number. And like, they were like, no, I can't share that. And then I was like, okay, I totally hear you can't share that, but so, you know, what's the range that it would be? No, I can't share that at all. Okay, so can you at least give me an idea, like what should be above 350 or should it be below 350? No, you know, I can't tell you that. Okay, so if I gave you 355, like right now, you know, how would you feel? You know, I mean, come on, you're really pushing. All right, so listen, if you got 355 today, right now, how would you feel about that? Yeah, 355 would get it done. Let's do it, right? And it's like, why not, right? Not every agent is going to be okay with that aggressiveness, and you have to be able to figure out, especially on the phone, who you need to be, who you can be to get that information, because there were a lot of exclamation marks on that chat. And can we all agree that the hard part is finding the place? Now you just got to lock it up. You got to lock it up. You've already done a lot of the hard part. Okay, so
can I just say something here?
Yes.
Yes, I think sometimes, I mean, from my experience, calling also helps, because like I had a client that had a certain amount that they can pay for a house, you know, and when you actually call the agents, you find out that if they can go to a certain amount, you know, you can find out kind of, you know, if it's 30,000 above, 40,000 above, and sometimes your clients can't really go up that much. So that can also save you time and go on to the next house, and instead of wasting your time making offers, something that's not going to happen. I mean, that was my experience in a couple of them. So we just moved on to a different house because it was too high.
Yeah, Mandy, yeah, that's
giving
Mandy,
a range.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Listen, I do believe you miss every shot you don't take, right? And so even if you don't think you're going to get it, I would encourage you, you never know what's going to happen. Or if a deal falls through, sometimes if I have 10 offers on a place and a deal falls through, I had 20 showings and 10 offers. Well, if a deal falls through, I'm going to call those 10 offers first before I let all 20 people know that this is coming off. So I would encourage, make the offer. And at the same time, if that call will tell you how to help set expectations for your own clients, right? Hey, this agent thinks like they are the greatest gift in the world. We're going to have to come in aggressively. Or this agent has no idea what they're doing. I think we can, you know, come in with X. So it's just giving more, the more information, the better. Okay, moving on to number 2. Let's say we've already made that phone call. And then here I got a question coming in, and then I'll have you know, Matt and Rosie, if there's a question that comes in that I missed, feel free to give my attention towards that. But so a new listing your client's interested in, listing agent hosts an open house. Is that a good way to establish rapport? I mean, anytime there's interaction, but Paula, in terms of a listing agent hosting an open house, as in like go and talking with that listing agent at the open house. Feel free to clarify what you're asking. I'm gonna jump to number 2, and then if you can give a little clarification on exactly what you're asking, or if you want to unmute yourself. But either way, building more rapport with the agent never hurts. And actually, as a side note, as I talked to the group last month, joining some kind of realtor association, the more agents that you know, especially in a multiple offer situation, if you have good rapport with the agent, you've done a deal with somebody before in the past, it will help you win. So even if you've had even if some agents are jerks, always leave on the best possible note whenever you can. The house I bought and that I'm in right now, the listing agent was, let's just say, difficult. And I found out she's a huge Radiohead fan. And so even though it was one of the toughest deals I'd ever done, I sent her this really cool, like customized Radiohead vinyl that was etched in with a quote that I felt would apply to, like, it was a quote from one of the Radiohead songs with etched in vinyl. And she called me speechless. the first time in our entire experience, she was speechless. And now we run into each other all the time because I bought a house in her main market, and she's like my best friend. You know, we text all the time now, and I easily could have left it like really sour and really bitter. And we ended it in a great situation, and it's been a huge asset. So rapport and relationships will always help you win. So item number 2, a cover letter. Now, as a disclaimer, in some areas, in some markets, and I don't know if a managing broker is here, we're being discouraged to present a cover letter. If a buyer like presents a letter to the seller, we don't want to, you know, have any concerns of, well, any fair housing concerns, right? Some kind of protected issue came up in the letter, they didn't win, and then there's a concern of protection of fair housing. So as a disclaimer, use caution, be aware of any fair housing items, and that includes things like even familial status is a protected class. So if you say we have kids and then you don't get accepted, there could be a concern of discrimination. So use that wisely. But I can't tell you how many times we've had a seller choose someone who's like, that was me 7 years ago. I know the pain. And we have won sometimes where we were not the highest offer. So I know that once some of you may have already done this and some of you may have not, but including a cover letter, and don't wait until the night that you're making the offer. Have a client pre-write a cover letter now. If you're working with a buyer now, have them rewrite a letter that's 80% done. It's one less thing you have to do later. And then just actually, you know, the remaining 20%, make it something specific about the house. Like, oh, we love your Chicago map, or, you know, I get Rosie has a Rosie the Riveter sign behind her. Like, you know, something that you can go deep and connect with that seller on. I've had a buyer who had some cultural, or a listing, there were some cultural garments on the wall, and my client had just gone to that country. And so in the cover letter, she was like, we're going to put those same, you know, we bought those same garments. We're going to put on the same location. Like, it was awesome. We're so excited to make it our own. And the sellers, we offered like 15K less than the offer we were willing to go with. And they just flat out responded like, yeah, let's do this. Right. So that wasn't a multiple offer situation, but it built rapport where somewhere where that letter, if we didn't have that letter, we wouldn't have had that. So when you're presenting the offer, include a cover letter when appropriate, or even a video, right? We're using technology more than ever before. Perhaps we can use video as a way to integrate as a meaningful way. If you are going to present a letter, as an agent, I would actually incorporate it as page 1 of the offer, because if it has a separate attachment, it's too easy to have it not be sent or not be read, or the seller gets 10 offers and each offer has 4 attachments because there's a rider and a proof of funds and a this and a that. Maybe they don't get it. Page 1 of the offer into the PDF, it's a lot harder for it to get lost. So as part of your offer presentation, which is what we'll talk about next, having a cover letter from it and then going really deep. We've had a scenario where a buyer's kid drew a picture of the house, right? And like the sellers had kids, and it was like, oh, like this feels good. This feels nice. So I have a couple of things in the question. Yeah, so attending an open house with the client. Yeah, anytime you can have a chance to build rapport. But if you're going to an open house or a showing, and I see in my client's eyes, like, you know, you can tell if the client likes it or not. Let the client go see the house, and I'm just going to be hanging out with that listing agent and trying to do my prospecting for information in person, because it's much easier to be really persuasive belly to belly. Right? Oh, hey, you know, Perry White, oh, you know, I see some kids stuff in the corner. Like, well, have they moved yet? You know, where are they going? Have they found a place yet? Right? All of a sudden, it's like, if they found a place, that's a very big difference compared to if they haven't found a place yet. Oh, hey, they're moving because they're expecting a baby by September 1st. More to come on that later. That's really important information for me to know. It seems like surface information, but good information to know. So yeah, anytime you can build rapport. And then in the offer letter, we're going to talk about next, and in hitting highlights of the offer, that's what we're going to talk about next. And then easier way to get around gray if not permitted in your market. Yes, so there's whatever ways you can get around the gray areas, use your best judgment. And then, yeah, I mean, Perry had some love letters, you know, 1 letters from kids to the sellers and the dog. So yes, absolutely. Any way to incorporate individual personalized items will help you win in a situation where you may not always be the highest price. Okay, any questions on cover letter? ready to move on to part 3, which is all part of this offer template. So feel free to submit any questions in the chat if you have them. So number 3 is the actual offer template, right? So when you're presenting the offer, and we had some people mention this in the chat, I also cannot tell you how many times somebody just forwards me the DocuSign. Like all it said was, you know, please DocuSign the address, and then they just forwarded me the email. No phone call, no text message, no additional, like no heads up, nothing in the email saying anything about themselves or the buyer or the terms. And sure, yes, as a listing agent, my job is to open up the offer and read through it and read through the terms, not just assume that the summary is correct. But come on, everybody, show me that you're willing to put in a little bit of energy and a little bit of effort to get the deal done. Because if 2 terms are exactly the same and one agent put together a whole summary and they showed me that they're thorough and organized and detailed, and one person just sent me the DocuSign, unless I know that other agents, I'm going to be like, this agent it seems that this agent knows what they're doing better. And guess what? That could be just enough to be like, hey, Joel, I don't know what to do. Who should we offer? I'm like, I like this agent better. Sometimes it's as simple as that, right? So in that offer template, where you're not just you know, saying here's the price, it's actually going to be a full bulleted list. So in the email subject, change the subject to having the address of the property. Don't just forward the DocuSign. And then you're going to actually include a bulleted list of all the terms. And guess what? We've done that prospecting for information call already. So now let's say I'm presenting to Steve. I'm not going to say, you know, 500,000. What's a good average purchase price for in your area or region, Matt?
400 or 500.
Okay, 400 or 500. So I'm not just going to say, hey, Steve, here's an offer price of 500K. I'm going to say, here's an offer price of 500K, which is, you know, based off a conversation you said was a great price they'd be happy with. I'm not offering a September 1st closing. I'm saying we're closing September 1st, which means the sellers can settle in on their next place before next baby, right? Like the date is a feature. The settling in before next baby is a feeling. That's an emotion. That's a benefit. And so there's a bold law that says, you know, logic makes you think and emotion makes you act. We're looking to incorporate persuasion and emotion into the offer template. And let's say if it's a cash offer, right? I'm not just going to say it's cash. I'm going to say a cash offer, which means in 7 days from now, the sellers can rest easy that they know that this deal is going to close, right? Like beat that horse to death, right? Please don't beat any real horses. I say, like, you know, you can only bring a horse to water. Like, no, you got to sometimes dunk that horse's face in the water, because you don't know who this listing agent is. You don't know if they know how to describe the benefits of cash to a seller, right? Like if you ask an agent, hey, what's the benefit of cash versus financing? You ask 10 agents, you're going to get 15 answers. So it's important to help them very clearly connect the service that you're offering with the benefit that it connects directly to that seller, which you found out in prospecting for information, number 1. And yes, Mike, at the end, if you send me an email, I will include the bulleted list of my talking points and a sample offer template. And I've gotten, I think, 7 different text messages and emails from agents who I've been teaching this class since February, saying that they were one of 8 offers, they were one of 10 offers, and they said, I was the only agent who gave them this offer template. They said mine was the best, and that was a main reason why they were excited to talk with us, right? So once again, it's not rocket science. I'm not the only one who's going to tell you to do a template. And in fact, Cody even said, you know, an offer overview with bullet points. Like Cody's already nailing it. And so Cody, if you can integrate these with some of the other things, maybe that will help you have less exclamation marks, right? You know, if you're going to have other terms, which we'll talk about later, like as is or things of that sort, as is, which means less negotiating once we come to terms on price. We're offering 20% down, which means there shouldn't be a concern on you know, debt to income ratios. If it's a condo, we're offering more than 10% down, so there's no concerns of limited condo review versus a full condo review, things of that sort. So making it really clear to connect, especially if you found out any pain points. Like in that prospecting for information call, sometimes I find out a deal has fallen apart in the past. So financing is really important. Well, guess what? I'm going to make sure that this is from my number one, my preferred lender, and making sure that they feel comfortable with a part that they're going to be scared about. Because guess what? We as sales agents are very good at selling benefits, right? We're really good at selling benefits and features, right? And making people feel happy and good of what they're going to get. But there's two sides to every single sale. And I can't remember, Perry, I can't remember if we talked about this last session or not, but all right, selling the benefits. What's the other most important? I want some little participation. What's the other part, another key element to get a sale? We need to sell the benefits, and what else do we need to do to get somebody to say yes and to feel comfortable?
Get emotions in there.
Okay, get emotions in there. What kind of what's one of the most important emotions that we need to navigate?
Some kind of heartstring or something. I don't know.
Okay, what's an emotion that often gets people to not do something or to not?
The emotion you need to navigate is fear.
Fear, yes. Who said that?
Lisa.
Lisa gets the bonus point. So fear. So we have to remove fear, and especially in a multiple offer situation, sometimes sellers are saying, "Oh, hey, great, right?" And Janet and Eileen had it as well. So, oh, great, I'm in a multiple offer situation. This is easy. I'm going to win. Well, it's really stressful and scary for sellers because they're like, who do we pick? What terms do we choose? Are we going to choose the right one? Is the deal going to fall apart? Which one is going to have an appraisal concern? Fear, 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 fear. Right? So we can help remove the fear anywhere possible, then we can help win. And we do that through that prospecting for information call to find out what fear or pain points there are. And then in an offer letter to help make sure that we're connecting our actions with their emotions. Yes, and so yeah, so David, we'll send. I said at the very end, I'm going to send my email. So you have to wait till the end. I'm going to give you my email, and then you'll email me with two things I'm going to ask for at the end, and then I will send that back to you. So I'm not going to send individual emails here. I can't keep track of that, but you're going to send an email to me if you want it, and then I'll send it back. Fair deal? Great. That's how it's going to happen anyway, whether you think it's fair or not. Number 4, we talked about this earlier, right? The quality of the agent who is representing that offer makes a huge difference, right? So if you're new in the business, leverage the office stats. Hey, our office has closed X number of deals, in the last X months or in the last few months. If you're on a team, leverage the team stats. Hey, our team has done X. If you're an individual producer, right, and you've done more than a certain number of deals or volume that's a key threshold in your area, make sure to say, hey, Perry, our team has done. Our team last year did 42 million in transactions. We helped over 200 people move. We don't just make offers, we close deals. So this isn't just an offer template. This is an easier deal. I'm gonna make this the easiest deal you've ever done all year, Perry. This is an easy closed deal. So that way, when you say yes, you're saying yes to a closed home. So your sellers, so the sellers, not your sellers. So the sellers can move in by September and settle in with a new baby, right? Like all those things all connected in one. So selling yourself, selling the team, or some kind of interpersonal connection that will help remove the fear that you are the right agent to work with as well. And then also, thanks to Language of Sales, once again, I don't know if anyone has taken that class, Language of Sales taught by Ron Wexler, who's an OP in our region here. He teaches Language of Sales. And there's something called, future pacing. And it's just going to say, naturally you realize that I've made that phone call. Hey, Matt, I made the phone call. I gave you a really clean offer. I followed through persistently. I hope you appreciate my persistence. You'll appreciate that when I'm going to work to close this deal together. Naturally, you're going to realize that we're going to work really well together. If a bump comes up, we're going to get this closed together. Let's give this a yes, right? So you are making it so clear to that agent, you are the one to work with. Any questions on offer template or selling yourself and the team? Okay, great. We're flying through here, everybody. It was mentioned earlier up ahead, earlier in the chat. Let's see, I want to make sure to give proper credit. Mike Anderson had mentioned having the buyer's lender call the listing agent, right? So once again, this is kind of a minor one on its own. It's definitely not enough to do it, but we had just talked about fear. So it's not enough to give the win, to give the yes on its own if you're not the highest price or the best terms, but it is a way to reduce some of the fear if you are getting financing, having that lender call that listing agent, right? Some lenders are now catching on to do this, and I'm getting a phone call every single day from Rocket Mortgage saying, help us get, pre-approved, already pre-qualified buyers, pre-approvals, so that way we can remove fears when making an offer. If a lender can reach out to a listing agent and saying, we've already gotten yes, you have a pre-approval, but a pre-approval is a piece of paper. Who knows what that really is? A lender calling saying, we've already gathered all the docs. We got the last 2 months of pay stubs. We've already done the automated underwriting. They have no debt to income ratio issues. They are as strong as cash. Like, they are good to go. And by the way, as a lender, I've closed $500 million this last year, right? So we get deals done as well, and we can turn around a clear to close in 10 days or a mortgage contingency in under 21 days. This is as solid as it can get, right? That certainly will help remove some fear. Can we agree? Give me a one if we can agree that that's something that will help remove fear. That isn't easy to do. It's not even your time. Leverage. Right? So the lender calling when appropriate, if you can't be cash and you're giving down payment. This also even includes if somebody is putting down 5% or 10%, I don't know how common that is in your market, that may be a total deal breaker when you're competing against multiple offers that are 20% down or higher down payments. And so sometimes the lender is saying, hey, let's address the elephant in the room. Right? Hey, you may be concerned that it's 5% down, but guess what? It's the reason they're doing 5% down is just to structure their financing. They have ample savings. There's no debt to income ratio, so don't let that scare you. They're already through automated underwriting. So make sure that you are addressing the concern, not just hoping you can squeak by, because we are past the stage of competition where you can just squeak by on hoping the listing agent doesn't know what they're doing. And vice versa, if you are doing 5% down, that listing agent may not also have had experience with 5% down deals either. So they may just say, oh yeah, no, 5% down, that's a huge red flag. These clients have no money, don't even consider their offer. Well, what if you could train that listing agent on how to present that, right? So during that prospecting for information call, bring attention to it and say, how do you feel about that? What has your experience been with that? Has anyone done any VA loans or FHA loans? Give me a VA or FHA in the chat. I'm actually curious to know how common it is in your market. Okay, so we got some VAs with Julie and Katie, right? Lots of VAs, handfuls of FHAs. So if a listing, right? So VAs, VA loans are not, if anyone who's been in the business for more than 3 or 4 years or longer, the VA loans of today are not the VA loans of yesterday. The VA loans used to be painful, extremely painful. They still sometimes may take, have some delays, but every lender is having delays right now. VAs, was hated in our market as well, but it's because people actually don't have recent experience with them. First of all, if we can agree that we can support the people who supported our troops and our freedom, the fact that we can own homes and be that, then it is our duty, it's all of our duty to at least arm ourselves with knowledge. Call a VA lender, everyone call a VA lender and just walk me through, hey, what's, the fear, right? 3 main concerns of a VA loan is delays. The house doesn't get approved because of inspection issues or things of that sort. And then just the deal is not closing. And actually my most recent work with a VA loan, I called that lender. They actually have a higher closing rate ratio than conventional lenders right now. Their approval to contract to approval was the same within 24 hours of a conventional lender. And then the inspection right, was in the appraisal, right? But the appraisal is, you know, we're still dealing with appraisal issues right now as well. So there are different things to navigate, but just make sure you arm yourself with education knowledge of what VA loans are and can do, because sometimes those are great qualified buyers. And so, and guess what? It's actually, if somebody is qualified for their upfront qualifications, it's actually a pretty solid deal. It's actually sometimes less risky than a conventional buyer who can lose their job, right? How many buyers, we've had buyers, especially throughout, you know, this last year, lose their jobs, you know, 6 weeks into a deal. But guess what? If they had a VA loan, they would have still been able to get financing if you know, depending on certain factors. So you still have to qualify for certain income things, but I had a great experience with VA loans. So being able to educate the listing agent on what you need, how to navigate through the fear of what you're presenting is a really key piece. So number 6, we haven't talked much about price, so let's talk about price, because 90% of the time, price is your key piece. Now, I will say, since starting tracking this, I wish we did it earlier. We've been in 54 multiple offer situations, and we have won, our team has won 48 out of 54 multiple offer situations, and we have not always been the #1 price. Okay, now some of those strategies we've already talked about, but let's be honest, everybody, you do have to offer the right price or be pretty close. So this is very obvious. You have to offer the right price. Now, the right price means 2 things. Understanding how to educate the buyer on what price to offer, and then working through some really key emotional pieces of, hey, offer the highest you can offer. What's you know, offer your highest and best. What does that even mean? Sure, I can offer another $1,000. Like, sure, I can offer, you know, more. Like if somebody was holding a gun to my head and say, hey, you have to offer $1,000 more, then yes, I could do that. But it's such an emotional thing, and we are emotional beings. And actually, first of all, that was not a good reference of firearms to a person. So please exclude that from the record. But you know, we are emotional beings that are highly irrational, and there are many times where we choose the irrational choice because we think we're being fair, or that's the right thing to do. When in the end, if we had removed ego and emotion, we would have acted completely differently if we were acting completely logically. So #1 is InfoSparks. I think you guys have InfoSparks integrated into your MLS and in your market. Okay, so give me a big I in the chat if every single buyer you're going over InfoSparks, and give me an N if no. An I if InfoSparks, and an N if no. If you're not using and I'm not trying to be exaggerating here. Every single buyer. Okay, so lots of no's here. So here's how we find out how to present an offer, right? You look at the comparable sales, and you look at the last 1, 3, 6, 9 months, if you can go back. So Paul had asked, what is InfoSparks? I'm not going to get into InfoSparks today. Your MLS should have tons of training, or your office should have training. Just write down InfoSparks. Make sure that you figure out where to get resources on how to use it. But this will help give trends, trends on supply, demand, pricing as well. So if we're looking at comps of 1, 3, 6, 9 months, we're looking at old data, right? And if something closed even a month ago, well, that offer was made 30 or 60 days before that. So it's a month ago, and then that offer was made 30 or 60 days ago. The world and market can be totally different 90 days later, right? So what's happening is we're looking at comps here, and we're offering here. Well, guess what? We need to be offering here. We need to predict where the market is going. Now, if the market is declining, hey, bonus, you get to offer less, right? So it depends where you're going. So using InfoSparks to looking at supply, demand, absorption rate, days on market, percentage of list price versus sale price. Don't just look at price trends, because right now, like 1-bed, 1-baths and high rises in the downtown Chicago market are really hard to sell right now, and prices are up. We're like, why is that happening? Well, guess what? people are having to buy larger one beds. If they can't afford a 2, they have to buy larger one beds or more expensive ones that have a view or outdoor space. So it looks like prices are up. It's just because people are buying bigger spaces because they can't, work from home in a 400 square foot, studio. So don't just look at price. And when you're looking at comps, if supply is up, if supply is down and demand is up, right? Then that will help me figure out where are these price points sold and then how to adjust the price from there. Because once again, we have to price here. So going through that with a buyer is going to say, why am I offering $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 over what the last house sold for? Or is there concerns on appraisals? Well, guess what? That's because we need to predict where the market is going. So that's part one, offering the right price, not just looking at comps, but looking at trending data and info sparks. And then we have to coach these buyers on understanding that every single dollar more is buying, is buying a higher chance of getting it, and every single dollar less is putting more risk on the table to not get it. So every dollar is essentially buying an increased chance at winning the house. And at some point, there's only so much risk you can put on. And it's important, there's a big difference between saying, dear buyer, you need to offer $10,000 more to get this house. $10,000 can seem like a lot of money for some people. Well, today's interest rates, every $1,000 is just under $4 a month in monthly carrying costs, right? So we say you live in the payments, not the price, right? The taxes, the payments, if there's any HOA, the insurance, utilities, all of that, right? So every $1,000 is about $4 a month. So instead of talking to a buyer saying, hey, can you offer 10,000 more? It seems like a lot of money. But if it's $4 a month for every 1,000, hey, can you offer $40 a month more? Can you cut out a couple Starbucks, Starbucks runs, or can you cut your cable bill, right? $40 a month. Okay, I know what $40 a month means. I can handle that. That's manageable. Now that 10,000 will make a difference when they go to sell it. But once again, you got to help them understand psychologically what they're actually saying yes to. All right. And then one step further, if they're saying no, okay, you're saying no to this means if I call you on Saturday and saying, hey, we didn't get it because somebody offered 10K more, you're saying that you're okay with that, right? That's what you're actually saying yes to. It's really easy to say yes to I'm scared, so I'm just going to do nothing or not say yes. But you have to remind them that saying yes means you're staying in your house, that you saying, you're working at the living room table right now every single day. By not offering 10K more or $40 more per month, you're saying yes to working at your living room table for another week. Is that what you're saying yes to, right? And I'm going to do a little accusation audit saying, listen, you may sound like you may think that I'm going to try and be a pushy salesperson or not being respectful of your money. That's not all this is. I'm not trying to be a pressure person. I'm trying to help make sure that your actions are in line with your goals. And you said, get me out of here. So to get this place, you're going to need to offer 10K more. Any questions on making the right price or offering the right price? Aha moment. I love Steve. Steve, you are now hired for all of my future next presentations. The last thing is a little script. So script alert, if you want to take some notes, or if you were not paying attention for a moment, it's okay. I know I talk a lot and I talk fast. Script alert is offering your highest and best. What does that mean? So a script that we have found that wins with buyers is, what's a price that you can offer where if I called you the next day and said, hey, we lost it by $1,000, that you wouldn't be upset or have regret and say, we should have offered 1,000 more. And then what's the price that if I say, hey, congrats, we got it, you aren't going to say, what did I do? I can't afford this, right? So what's that balance between you won't feel regret if we lost it by 1,000, and if we won it, that you can afford it and you're comfortable. So that's a winning script that we have found the only way to help people navigate kind of the psychology and emotion and logic that you need to have. I'd be curious to hear if anyone else has a short, quick winning script, because if it's more than 30 seconds, then it's not going to be heard by the buyer at the moment. Anyone else have any good winning scripts? Okay, so it's 1:49. I told Matt that I'd be done with my presentation at 1:55. So number 7 in 5 minutes or less. Aside from price, how else can we make our offer stronger? So anyone have any tips or tricks on, aside from price, what are some other things we can do to help make this, make an offer stronger? Let's hear it. Either unmute yourself or throw it in the chat box. Okay, closing date. Great. Debbie nailed on the head because we've already done that prospecting for information call. So offering the right closing date. Amazing how many times we don't get the right one.
Escalation clause.
Escalation clause. Okay. Was that Derek?
Yes.
All right, Derek, when do you use an escalation clause?
You putting in an offer.
Okay.
Escalation clause at like say $10,000, but in $1,000 increments above the price that someone else offers.
Yeah, absolutely. So an escalation clause saying, hey, we'll beat any offer by $1,000 up to 510,000. Now, as a caveat, in that prospect information call, I would ask, how do you feel about escalation clauses? Because sometimes I've heard listing agents say, nope, not accepting them, won't deal with them, won't touch them, don't do it, right? Or some will say, yeah, all day, go for it. So you want to know what you're dealing with, and are you competing against them? Now, really, is an escalation clause here to benefit the buyer or the seller? What's the benefit to a seller for an escalation clause? Does it benefit the buyer or the seller more? I'd love to see it in the chat. We got buyer, we got one seller, we got some buyers. Yeah, right. So it could be both. It could be a way to say, hey, seller, the benefit is you can get 1,000 or 2,000 higher than any other group. But I've seen a seller say, we had a $500,000 listing and somebody offered 500 up to 35,000 and beating any group by 2,000. And we had another group who offered 525. And my sellers chose the 525 because they're like, this group that offered the escalation clause, they weren't forward and upfront and direct. They were trying to save money by using an escalation clause. So if they're trying to save money and be fancy now, then they're going to try and save money, be fancy throughout the whole process, and maybe try and renegotiate later, right? So just a forewarning, escalation clauses aren't always the ace in the hole that you're thinking. And then part two, I'm going to turn the escalation clause around you and say, okay, you were willing to go up to 535. Let's say I only had an offer at 525. So you're beating an offer by 2,000 up to 535, but my other offer was only at 525. That means your offer is going to be 527, right? Well, I'm going to call you and say, hey, Derek, I have good news and bad news. The bad news is you are not number one. There's a different group that we're likely going to go forward with. Unless, here's the good news, I can get it for you for 530. It's 5K less than the offer that you were willing to give. So bonus, if you can get me a 530, remove the escalation clause, we got a deal. Can you make that happen, Derek? Right? So now all of a sudden buyers are happy, 5K less. Well, guess what? You gave me all the speaking points, all the talking points of how to totally work you, where maybe you could have won it with 527. So just a thought, it's not a foolproof tool. We had some people in the chat who mentioned a shorter inspection period. Yeah, Debbie, exactly, right? So fear, risk, every single contingency is shifting risk from the buyer's plate to the seller's plate. Sometimes we don't even think about that, right? It's just shifting risk from the buyer to the seller. Well, how can we shorten that risk? So a shorter inspection period, doing as is, right? Doesn't mean you can't get the inspection period, but doing as is. Shortening the mortgage contingency period. In our offer template, our multi-board 7.0 template, it's pre-written that the mortgage contingency is 45 days from acceptance or 5 days before closing. Do not practice law. As a licensed individual, we're not practicing law, but I scratch that off and I write in 21 days or 30 days. Because just because the template says it's supposed to be 45 days, that's risk. That's a long time for risk. If you can't waive the contingency as a whole, shorten it. Make it as short as possible. Yeah, so less days on due diligence. Cover the property taxes. So this is a great one. I call this the Jen Davis, Sarah Detmore tactic. So a lot of sellers are having concerns on a property's appraising. If you just offer 100,000 more, there's no guarantee that you're going to get that price because of appraisal concerns. Well, the Jen Davis and Sarah Detmore move is offer to pay the seller's closing costs, offer to pay the seller's listing commission, right? Instead of offering 20,000 more, say, hey, I'll pay 20,000 of your commissions. that's not part of the appraisal price. That's a closing cost, right? So just a different way to navigate it, you know, do the math, you got to figure it out. But yes, tax expirations, things of that sort are ways that a seller can get more money, but reduce the concerns of just offering a higher price if their appraisals are concerned. Yes, so not asking for, you know, a home warranty is just $500. Like, you know, like the more you add in, the less clean it can be. So pre-inspection, right? We actually sometimes in harder markets, we have our sellers do pre-inspections, but we haven't been having to do that. So I see offering 30 to 60 day after close to live in the property for free, you know, yeah, post-closing, you know, funds, like we're talking about change of money. If we can all agree to it and the attorneys agree, why not, right? And then the last thing is, you know, we talked about the mortgage contingency earlier of like 5% or 10% down. Well, a mortgage contingency says we're making this offer and it's contingent upon us getting a mortgage at these terms or better, right? So if somebody is putting down 5%, I'm going to ask them, can you put down, if the lender calls you and says, hey, Matt, sorry, you are not approved for the loan. You need to put 10% down or you can't get this loan. Would you be able to somehow, some way, I'm not saying this is what you need to do, but somehow, some way, can you come up with 10%? Can you come up with 12%? And if the answer is yes, then put 10% or 12% in as the mortgage contingency. Doesn't mean that that's the term that they have to apply for. It just means that those are the terms that they can cancel. So helping a buyer understand what the mortgage contingency means of the down payments, put the highest down payment possible that they can do. You can put down 50% if they can get 50% and apply for 5%, right? It just means that if they can't get approved for 5%, that contingency is how you structure the ability to cancel. Any questions on that? We have 3 minutes left. So I have a feeling we're going to go over slightly. We went a little long on some sections. But the last, I want to talk about home sale contingency is the last thing, or Q&A. So yeah, Julie, whoo. So give me an H if you want to talk about home sale contingencies, and give me a Q if you want to do some Q&A in the chat. And while we're doing that, Julie, idea 5 was the lender calling when appropriate. Okay, H, home sale contingency. So 2 parts on home sale contingency, right? This is, hey, we're making this offer you know, to say that it's contingent upon us selling our house. So one is, let's say if I have a client who's selling their place in Chicago and buying somewhere in Minnesota, and I refer them to you, you're gonna call me and have me call the listing agent and say, hey, these clients have hired me. I've sold $42 million in the last 12 months. Here's a copy of our listing presentation. Here's our seller's guide. Here's what our flyers look like. Here's the virtual tour. And you know, help me sell myself. If I have a buyer who's you know, a seller who's buying in another market, I'm not going to interject myself when not wanted or needed, but making sure that everybody's involved. So one is, we love sending referral checks. So send me all of your Chicago buyers and Chicago sellers. And if we have some clients who are buying in your region and need to sell in Chicago, I'd love to send you that referral check, right? So a home sale contingency says we're offering, you know, we have to sell our place. Well, is there a way, talking to those sellers, if you are talking to those buyers, if you're offering a home sale contingency in a multiple offer situation, your chance of winning is limited to none. Now, sometimes, typically, people are selling a less expensive place to buy a larger one. So we focus on how to get approved for the new one. Well, how do we remove the debt on the previous one? So I've had clients actually get a private loan, a short-term loan, to pay off the debt of the first place. So that way, even though they needed to sell and pay off the debt, it wasn't on the same lender, and they were able to get approved for the new mortgage because they relieved the debt on the previous one. So use ribbons. Though I think that's funny, I don't fully get the joke, and I will be honest about that. Anyway, so there's also a reverse home sale contingency. I heard this one from Tyler Lukey Partners in the Barrington office. Let's say if that seller hasn't found their next place yet. Okay, guess what? They're competing in the same crazy market that we all are. What if they have fears of finding their place? So I've heard a reverse home sale contingency saying, hey, Matt, here's this offer. And no, you know, we won't start the diligence process. We won't do anything, accept the terms. and your sellers have 30 days to find their next place. If they can't find a place, we'll cancel the deal. If they do, great, because they're going to freak out about, you know, where they're going to go. So if they haven't found that place yet, a unique little bonus is, you know, offering or integrating a term saying, hey, this deal is contingent on you sellers finding a place that you're happy and that you like. A buyer needs to have that flexibility, but once again, we'll take every single unfair or competitive advantage we can take. If a buyer is in a month-to-month lease or can move anytime or doesn't need to sell in order to buy, we can offer flexibility to that seller that someone else can't. So it is 2 o'clock right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm putting my email in the chat right now, as I promised. Steve is my favorite person I've ever been involved with. So I'm putting my email in right now, joel@mychicagoresource.com, and you are gonna send me an email with your favorite takeaway of the day, or one thing I could have done better, and then something unique about yourself. Because if I'm gonna send you a referral from Chicago, I need to remember you, and a great way to help me remember you is something unique or fun about yourself as we all get to know each other. So send me an email with your #1 takeaway, or one thing I could have done better, or one thing that was over your head, or one place where I need to slow down. And then part 2 is something unique about yourself. And I will send you the talking points of today. I'm going to send you the offer template that I use to actually send an offer. And then I will also give you a list of questions for the prospecting for information call, which was in point #1. So it's 2 o'clock. I promise to be done. I'm happy to hang out. You're welcome, Leslie and everybody. I'm happy to hang out and answer some questions, because I know it's like a fire hose and it's a lot. And, you know.
All right. Joel, thank you so much. On behalf of our market center, on behalf of the North Central region, we really appreciate you jumping on today with us. Love the detail, love the information, and strategizing with you. But I also, just some feedback for you quick. I like how you do this engagement afterwards, after the fact, like you said, what's the takeaway? What could I have done better? And then something unique. I love that you do that. So I'll be in touch with you. We'll continue our communication.
Great.
Thank you very much. We actually do have to jump onto another line at 2 o'clock here,
Okay.
using the Zoom link. So we're going to jump off and wish
Thank
you
you,
well.
everybody.
Everybody communicate with Joel, and have a good rest of your week.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for making it happen.